record. Here we go.
It's on.
All right. Hey, what's up, y'all? Okay, so it's Prometheus from Hatchet from Prometheus Unchained. I got a LAR movement right here. And for this episode, if I could figure it out, it's going to be episode number 2 of Man in the Middle. So yeah, it's kind of obvious what this is all about. You know, I have a theory. It's called the Fire Ice Theory. You can check out my Twitter page at Light and Fire at Light and Fire 33. And check out my Twitter page. You see a lot of neat little things that I put up on there. So yeah, man. Hey, what's up, LAR? How you doing?
I'm good. Good afternoon.
Yeah, man.
We've been working on this for a while, y'all.
yeah. We've had some, I'm trying to figure out this technical stuff. Obviously I'm not very good at it, but we got to roll with the punches and keep it moving forward. So let's go ahead. Let's just begin. So really happy to interview LAR Movement today. I've been keeping up with his content for quite a while now. And, he's a little bit older than me, middle class Black man. And he's right here in Houston, Texas with me. And, I like how he tries to address, numerous problems that, and he's not, afraid to share his opinion, about what's going on here in America, even global politics, what's going on in the Black community. He's even, he's called out men and women, you know what I'm saying? He's brought up a number of issues of trying to solve some of these problems. So, I'm trying to be very open-minded and have an open ear and listen to many different perspectives, including LAR Movement. So anyways, all introductions are off to the side. So what's up, LAR Movement? My first question for you is, what inspired you to start your YouTube channel?
Out of actual hobby, finding a new hobby, and I was going to utilize the channel to actually make, to upload music, because me and one of my best friends, we made music together.
Okay.
But he didn't necessarily want to do it on camera, so I just started uploading material. So that's basically how it started.
All right, that's what's up, man. And yeah, like I said, I've seen you've been on here for damn near 8, 9, 10 years. So you definitely have put in a whole lot of work. You got that seniority and that experience that comes along naturally. So very much appreciate, everything that you contribute to the conversation to help us move forward and to help other people from, I don't know, different demographics, different classes, tax bracket wise, to have a better understanding about what's going on. Particularly, you seem to focus a lot on the middle class, which I believe is tactically, very intelligent to focus on the middle class, because it seems like our middle class here in America, economic wise, they've really taken an ass whooping for a number of years. So, but yeah, let's see. Real quick, the state of politics is very hyper-partisan. The mainstream media hasn't really been helping a whole lot. A lot of people, are losing friends behind it. I lost some friends behind it. Family members are becoming distant. But with all that being said, what are some of your thoughts about, what's going on with, the political atmosphere of year 2020?
I think when it comes to politics, you should already know what your decision is by now. But I think people shouldn't be as riled up by politics, because it's like, if you watch too much TV and you watch too much politics, I don't care if you're on the right, left, I don't care, far right, far left. What's going to wind up happening is you're going to be a puppet. And people are, people gonna pull your string, and you just gonna jump off the porch without taking into consideration to it. These politicians don't care about you like that. These parties don't care about you personally like that. They care about your vote, but do they care about you specifically? Absolutely. Do they care about what you represent? No, you got to get in their face for that. So for me, it's like, how can I use the policies that these people who are in offices back to benefit me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times, I think that's where the major divide is ideology, but the minor divide is one of those where, you know, one person could benefit if it goes this way, another person could benefit if it goes that way. So you got a vested interest in hoping what you want wins. But the irony of that is you should, like what Ice Cube was talking about, you should have a plan if your people win or if your people lose.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be, you know, all in and I'm gonna just sit on the sidelines until I get people that I like. It ain't gonna work like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, I've been noticing the certain patterns of behaviors that have been taking place. And, a lot of people might disagree with me, but, I think it's kind of strange how, these people seem to rise up and come up out of the woodworks, when, people in the Black community start pursuing goals of the Black community and not the entire world come before, you see what I'm saying, the Black community. And I don't think that is necessarily being outlandish or selfish. Is I think, look, people, they got a right to look out for their families, just like you don't always got to agree with everything on the left or on the right. That's part of the reason why I'm, mostly in the middle, and I'm hoping that more people will come towards the middle. Now, I saw this YouTube video just this morning, and there was Louis Farrakhan on it, and he was speaking to his congregation. He had his little green bow tie, his little green pocket handkerchief. And on that YouTube video, hopefully I could pull it back up, but I haven't been successful pulling it back up. But on that video, it was right here in the year 2020, and he was basically saying, look, in regards to Trump, I kind of appreciate him calling out the FBI. I kind of appreciate him calling out the CIA. You know what I'm saying? And, I got to give, kudos to even Louis Farrakhan right there, because he's like, look, back the hell up off of Trump. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, back the hell up off of Trump, let him, just give him a shot, let him try to do his little job. He's trying to drain the swamp, so I'm very optimistic, knowing, that such a reputable and well-studied, well-versed man, regardless of ideology or whatever, is willing to say, what, let me kind of come back a little towards the middle. And, I've seen the mainstream media come for this man's throat, his administration, his family. Let's not pile on top of them extra. You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and stand back and, let them try to achieve something. So it's good. And I've been keeping up with what's going on in the Middle East. The latest thing that's been taking place in the Middle East is, we have these agreements going on with, the last one, was it Sudan and Israel? And it's just moving the needle closer and closer and closer to peace in the Middle East. And the reason why I bring that up is because, yes, we do have a number of Arab nations coming together and saying, okay, maybe, Israel does have some legitimacy. They, have, sovereignty, as a nation. Just the acknowledgement in and of itself can help us move forward, especially economically wise, and maybe everybody can spread the wealth more as time progresses and, divvy up pieces of the pie of power. And, on a global level, world peace could be achievable. What do you think?
Which one you want me to start with?
Let's go ahead. You know what? You go ahead. You start wherever you want.
As far as, I think what you talking about Farrakhan with the Trump thing, I think that was like God chose him, I believe. It was like part of it.
Yeah. So you saw that little clip, right?
I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw a good part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is, and I noticed this, and I was talking about watching a documentary on Showtime.
Okay.
It's called American Selfie, right? And I was sitting there looking at it, And the only people who weren't fazed in that documentary by the way this country was going, for the most part, was black men.
Mm.
And the reason I bring that up is because some people think that you got black men who genuinely like want Trump in and to support his policies. And you got black men who genuinely are looking at it like, the worse this country gets economically, the better it is for us, actually. You know, because we're one of the few groups that can survive when everything is gone down the tubes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it ain't an issue, it ain't because of Trump per se, it's because of the fact that even if Biden wins, right? Biden and Harris, nobody has a plan for this economic, next year economically. China is the only nation in the world that's not going to be in debt next year. Every other nation is pretty much, their debt is bigger than their GDP.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at it, it's like using that as a backdrop for like peace in the Middle East and Israel, they ain't got no choice. They broke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to be peaceful when you broke. All of this beef comes into play when you have more than somebody else. So now if you ain't got much, what can you really, how much can you really just push your weight around? So, you know, for me, it's like all these other groups are starting to figure out that maybe, just maybe, they've been too focused on beef for their own good. You know, part of that documentary was like, you know, the reason why China's going to have more money than everybody is because while America focused on war, China focused on business. And when you think of all of the countries connected to America, the vast majority of those countries are focused on some type of war in some shape or fashion, whether it's regular war, drug war, a war for, you know, resources. It's some type of war involved. So it's like, that's what you get.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that kind of sort of makes sense because, you know, that's one thing looking into Trump, you know, yeah, I guess you could say, you know, I support him, you know, not in every single thing he has ever done, but, you know, there are a number of things I support him in. You're talking about these endless wars. Hey, you're right, because we got to look back on, you know, how 9/11 took place, all the weapons of mass destructions. Now we wound up in the Middle East and we just got war after war after war after war. No clear objectives, you know, like you were saying. And the predicate was, you know, it's based on all these weapons of mass destruction. So while all those things have taken place, you know, what has really been accomplished being the world's policeman? Not that much. So obviously the industrial military complex, maybe some generals, so to speak, would be against Trump's current stances because, you know, a lot of people are acknowledging it. Even the mainstream media, they're saying, you know what? A lot of things have taken place these last 4 years, but one thing we can say is that Trump ain't been running up out here trying to just go to war with everybody. We are not we're supposed to be in war with North Korea. We're not in war with them. You know, he's trying to bring back some of the troops with the Middle East and, you know, while doing this peace deal. And obviously, it's a lot more easier to accomplish this, even if we're going to focus on the optics of it and ignore everything else behind the scenes. But it's easier to accomplish this when you're not, you know, just showing up by the tens or hundreds of thousands in the Middle East, just, you know, blowing everything up. So yeah, you know, it's very complicated. It's very hard to explain, you know, in the granular details on how this is being achieved, but it's still being achieved nonetheless. So yeah, I haven't seen what you were talking about. What was it called? The American what?
The American Selfie. It's a Showtime documentary.
Okay.
It's just kind of like all of this stuff becomes interesting to me because we live in a society that pretty much, I'm not going to just, not just America, but the vast majority of the world has a caste system.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I've noticed that, especially in if you look into India, you know, it's actually very clear to see how they've had their caste system up, and it seems like people practice it. But go on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, like, so would you can't maintain a caste system if you can't maintain your caste.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at a point where it's a delicate balance of a caste system crumbling because they 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 don't have the skills anymore to generate money to keep the caste going. So the caste system is kind of like influx of people who from the bottom who now are in the top of the caste system, which creates a problem. You
So
know,
you're talking about it's bad that the using the India example, for example, it's bad that the untouchables are rising up in the caste system, or is it good?
no, okay, I'm saying it wrong, man. It became bad because the people who were supposed to always be at the bottom
Yeah.
can now elevate themselves up because the people who are on top are incompetent.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. That
So
people are seeing it more and more. Yeah.
now we're in an influx of, you know, people who have anxiety and fear that everything that they everything that they once knew is not going to be there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And this pandemic kind of has brought a head to it because, you know, like you're in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
The irony of it is during this pandemic, some areas are like slow. And in other areas, you're like, well, where y'all getting all this money from to keep doing all this stuff? And to me, that's like a microcosm of America, where certain places, things are shutting down, while certain places are kind of revving up for business to start. So you're trying to figure out, well, if these other places shutting down and you got money to start a business, how do you see yourself profiting in the future?
Okay. Well, see, I'm glad you brought that up. So, you know, here's my theory. Okay. Keeping an eye on China lately, you know, gathering everything together. There was this supposed whistleblower that came out, and she basically defected from the CCP. And she basically said, look, you know, it came out of a lab. This is a Frankenstein welded together type of virus. This ain't nothing natural. And it's my understanding that her credentials stem from the actual lab itself. So I believe I saw that on Tucker Carlson, and you could probably search her and find her. So keeping an eye on China, I came to notice that Wuhan, China, the actual epicenter of the virus itself, is open. Pulled up an article, and I think it was they've been pretty much open since I think September the 20th, something like that, and they clubbing and everything. So my question that I asked, right, because I tend to think in these terms of a stream of consciousness. My question was then, okay, well, if they're completely open, they're the epicenter. Why can't we open? And some things just were not making sense. Now, right here in Houston, okay, you know, I looked around a little bit, and I remember when the virus hit, the mainstream media, the fake news, whatever you want to call them, they were putting everybody in a panic mode. You know, everybody's buying toilet paper. You know, people were honestly believing we all finna die. But then I stumbled into an article. This is a published article from the Houston Chronicle itself, dating back to April. While everybody was panicking, you can't go to work, you can't do none, we all finna die. Okay, I went to Memorial Hermann myself. I didn't see no overrun a hospital personally, took it upon
Well,
myself because the mainstream media say, hey, they're completely backed up. There's no, like, it was just fear porn. That's why I took it upon myself to investigate. And I obviously found out that this wasn't happening. So taking that and then also to complete my thought, connecting it to the article, guess what this article from Houston Chronicle said in April? We are supposed to bring in all these illegal aliens. They were justifying and promoting the illegal aliens. And then they said, well, the reason behind it, an actual legitimate published article from Houston Chronicle, the reason behind it is because the economy. So the way I look at it, if I'm going to put on my national security glasses, is very simple. Why do illegal aliens have every right to go out here, work, make their money, feed their families, right here in Houston, Texas, where everybody knows we got a pretty bad problem with human trafficking and whatnot? The data and the statistics are there. But why were you caping for illegal aliens in April, but then nobody else was able to go to work? So wrapping all those 2 points and then coming full circle, my final conclusion is basically, okay, if we could have illegal aliens flooding our city back in April, I think one of the best solutions is just open the economy back up, because a lot of these conditions in which these illegal aliens come, men, women, and children, they are not sanitary, period. And the coronavirus is not the only disease in the entire planet of Earth. But if you want to make the argument, right, for the economy, no disrespect, to illegal aliens or whatever, but, knowing that they come through, the desert is completely unsanitary. There could be tunnels. Here in America, we tend to, have better hygiene, and we'll take a shower, we'll clean ourselves up, we'll change our clothes around. So there's a cesspool on one side, which will actually exacerbate the spread of coronavirus. Then you're saying bring them into the country, but then you can't go to work, you filthy Americans. So this cognitive dissonance makes no sense to me.
For me, I'm gonna use something as an example.
Okay.
I got one of these, right? So anybody know that? Yeah. So, but I got a bunch of these, a bunch of masks. Right. But this happens to be a Marvel mask, right? So when you pull at the tag, what do you think it says made where?
China.
So when you have a regular mask that you get on the internet, where's most of those made?
I'm guessing China.
So if you're looking for a product during the pandemic and you got, and you got to get it from Amazon or whatever, probably it's made where?
I don't really shop them, but I'm guessing you're going to say China.
Yeah. So for me, this whole virus thing puts a spotlight on America's laziness. See, we could blame China all we want for the pandemic, but if every mask let me be nice, because I ain't, and this to me this is a lie. 50 to 90% of the masks you wear come from China. You don't even make your own mask to stop it.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something that's been brought up by a lot of the leaders, and it's been going on for decades. One thing I agree with Trump on, he's literally the only president in 20, 30, 40, whatever years who has stood up to China, okay? Trying to do a deal with them, calling them out on their unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft. I'm not sure if you know about it, but you've heard about the China consulate here in Houston being shut down very recently. They were in the middle of burning down very important documents. So there's a reason behind that, and I'm not going to go into it, but there's a reason behind the burning of documents and the closing of the China consulate. So yeah, to a degree, yeah, you're right, because maybe we found out with the coronavirus, as you were saying, too much of our medical and our manufacturing and all that has been outsourced out to China. This is a globalist design. It's a globalist design. And, you know, this is why when Obama, for example, said, oh, you know, we'll never have manufacturing jobs come back. Well, it's been 4 years, the data has came in, and now companies are coming back to America. Specifically, manufacturing is beginning to return to America, and they are now on a foreign affairs policy seeking and already coming to with agreements from different nations to acquire the raw materials that fuel our medical industry. And yeah, there should be less laziness here in America. You know, we can produce our own stuff here in America. And we shouldn't be outsourcing all of our jobs, because if you're outsourcing all of the jobs, there's less jobs here. If there's less jobs here, people just might resort to illegal activities in which to feed their families. But if there's a flood of jobs here, guess what? You don't like this job, go to this job. You don't like that job, do your little hustle. You know, so the creation of the opportunities and redistributing the supply chains, and yeah, personal accountability and saying, hey, Americans, get off your ass and make something. I think they kind of tie in together.
That's one of the things, and it's not going to necessarily leave race out of it, but I'm doing my best to do it. America in itself, the country we call America, mm-hmm. was built on laziness and outsourcing. See, people came here and they didn't even want to buy land from the people already here. They didn't want to trade for land for the people who are already here. They stole it, laziness. Because you wouldn't have all of these problems if you weren't lazy. Slavery in itself was laziness. I want to build this country, but I don't want to work. I don't want to put in the work to do it. So now I've stolen a country and now I don't want to build it. Outsourcing, laziness. Then the immigration part, bring me your sick, bring me your poor. What was that about? Undercutting people who had already built the country, and you still don't want to build it now that they're free. So guess what you did? You import people to come help you start, you know, to keep the process going of building upon this country after the foundation was set, which is laziness. When these now at a certain point, when the buildings, you know, how can I say, when people say start paying me, now we got child labor laws because you didn't want to pay adults fair, so you started hiring children. And, you know, and I don't know if you know, but child labor laws, and I think female labor laws, male labor laws also came from animal cruelty laws. Because they made, you know, they had statutes for animal cruelty before they had statutes for human cruelty, as far as working. So laziness. You fast forward how the country didn't want to compete. Part of, you know, the Highway Act of you're riding, you building the highways with eminent domain through viable communities and viable neighborhoods. This is beyond the toss and all the other stuff, you know, but you're killing people's business because you don't want to compete with them because you're lazy.
Yeah, you know, that I can totally understand where your perspective comes from. Is there anything else you'd like to expand on that topic before I address?
Yeah, I'm just add to it and finish it. You fast forward and you get to outsourcing because you don't want to pay the workers in your country. And then you start importing immigrants and illegal immigrants, start paying them under the table. And then you start importing smart immigrants with the H-1B1 because you don't want to actually go to school and use the education to actually be intelligent to maintain this country anyways. So then you're bringing people in who are low skill and high skill because you still don't want to work. And guess what? Now we're in a country where most people don't know how to do the basic things we used to do.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, I like the way you tied all that together. Very logical. Not all this emotional crap we've been dealing with for 4 years. So yeah, that kind of does make sense. And I guess this is where if I'm going to be fair, right, I have to call out, I guess Democrats and Republicans, the establishment and of itself. Because yes, now we see what has happened when, for example, the World Trade Organization, we gave China a chance and we said, okay, we'll help you out. And this is going back decades. And now we're, fast forwarding decades later, it didn't work out too well. I also agree with the outsourcing of the jobs. Now, there may be, numerous arguments. Well, we don't have enough people. Well, the people aren't very educated, yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, you know what? Now you created this catalyst in which we have to solve these problems that we know has been going on. Our public school system is not very great, maybe there's an argument to be made about school choice. You got to actually educate your kids so when they grow into adulthood, they will be able to one day continue their education or join a trade, right? Train for that trade, be apprentice for whatever craft, and fill in these open jobs, as opposed to saying, and I hate hearing it all the time, but see, when I was growing up, I used to see, please don't ban me off of this with YouTube, talking to you, YouTube, because I get tired of y'all. But, when I was growing up, I seen niggas doing a lot of trade jobs. I seen niggas out here mowing a lot of lawns, having their own little small businesses, and they was doing pretty damn well. Now here in Houston, over about, let's say about 10 years or so, I've just seen all these people flooding over. And I don't see the Black community in particular in those areas of trade and employment or having their own small businesses like landscaping, going out here doing all that work when I was a kid. So I think, yeah, I agree with you yet again. You got all these flooding the country because why? Oh, I need the cheap labor. Oh, I got to maximize my profit. Oh, I got to lower down the overhead. All those things. Yeah, you'll probably choose the illegal, maybe that you can pay under the table, not have to worry so much about the taxes, as opposed to an American citizen.
And like, in some ways, I do not like how, in some ways, I get how illegal immigrants undercut workers. I can't respect that. But on another note, I'm like, the people who hiring them are the people who really need to be thrown under the bus.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, when people say, people are doing jobs other people don't want, the landscaping job, I know exactly what you're talking about, but those guys are old.
Now they are, right.
Right. It's their kids that don't want, I don't want to do that. So this is just an industry that made people, like all of this, the practical jobs, the trade jobs that kept families afloat and made families money, the children don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. My friends, their families was cementing, roofing, plumbing, electricians, dry cleaners, car washers, landscaping also. But all of the jobs that we're talking about that illegals have not, brothers had them jobs. They just got old and their kids were, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this, I want to be that. And now they're not making the money that their parents did relative to the cost of living.
Yeah.
But the immigrants, the best thing you could have did to somebody is pay them under the table.
Exactly. Because when it's all said and done, when you're bringing up this example of paying them under the table, If you pay them straight cash, whatever, guess what? That's less taxes. Obviously, the illegal alien don't have to pay into. Now you bankrupting the country. And then on the other side, like you were talking about the people that hire them, guess what? Now you're bankrupting the country because now you're not paying, your share of those taxes. So yeah, it's very dangerous economically wise. The final result that would occur in America through the hiring and the promotion of illegal immigration, and the fact that when you're paid under the table, you're not going to pay into the system, so to speak. So you could have these illegal aliens, right? Because the Democrats, their favorite thing is, oh well, free healthcare for all the illegal aliens. Another thing I saw on Tucker Carlson in the HEROES Act, this is actual legislation. Joe Biden's talking about, well, we got to pass it. In the HEROES Act, guess what? This is going to piss you off, bro. It says that illegal aliens are supposed to get retroactive payment. Connecting the coronavirus and the stimulus checks, et cetera, et cetera. And so not only are we supposed to fund it, but then we're supposed to go back retroactively. So if they've been here 10, 20 years, they get all that too. Well, guess who that's leaving out? You see what I'm saying?
The thing about it is, and this is where, this is where politics goes wrong.
Yep.
Because if I want to just be, you would say people who are conservative are trying to maintain the America that they once knew. And people who are liberal are trying to lay the groundwork for the America that is coming, right? But the problem with that is, it's the same racial group of people doing both. But what's gonna happen is, they're both, one person is trying to keep their benefit and one person is trying to mitigate the damages by trying to get people on their team. And in the interim, the people who aren't quote unquote illegal or immigrants are looking at people like, oh, so this is what this is about. You're gonna screw me so you could possibly get ahead. And the problem with that ultimately is, we're talking about all people who are old, 60s, 70s, 80s. So what exactly are you gonna get out of this?
That's a good point that you made. And to add on to the point that you're making, I actually spoke with a man. He's a little bit, middle-aged, but not real old. But he's been working forever. He's Hispanic. Guess who he voted for? He voted for Trump.
Yeah.
He's concerned about his kids. He's concerned about their future. He brought up the issue of, guess what? Illegal immigration. So with that being said, just like the people were surprised on, I believe, the news anchors on Telemundo or whatever, they were like, wait, we looked at this debate, we got all these Latino men supporting Trump. What the hell? We didn't think that the Latinos were going to support Trump like that. Well, because they weren't paying attention. They were so focused on the whites and the black communities. They didn't pay attention to, like, Homeboy and other Hispanic people that I've talked to that are saying, look, you know what? I don't agree with everything Trump says. I'm going to vote for him. My kid's going to have a future here. And if Hispanic people are saying they don't support illegal immigration, and I don't say that out of, the race or whatever, but let's be realistic, the proximity of Mexico, literally right next to us. Okay, and then other Latin American countries. It's about proximity. He's concerned, and he said, look, that's why I'm gonna vote for Trump. So what do you think?
The Hispanic community is interesting to me, because on one end, Hispanic isn't a race. In America, it's not a race. Most people who are Hispanic, their birth certificate in America says white.
Yep.
So, and the Hispanic culture is Catholic, so it's very much so tied into quote unquote white culture.
Mm-hmm.
But which interests me is people who are Hispanic, you know, or Latino, whatever you want to call it. It's like you already know, because historically Hispanic people have voted Republican. So it shouldn't be a shock that somebody Hispanic is voting Republican. It should not be a shock, you know. But on top of that, there's a certain amount of infighting because, you know, different countries have different beefs with each other.
Yeah.
So if anybody don't know, like, you know, for some odd reason, Puerto Ricans and Mexicans just never got along. I don't understand it because they ain't even nowhere close to each other in proximity of country, but that's a beef.
You're right.
You got people from Venezuela and El Salvador. You got Argentinians and Brazilians. It's all kinds of inside beefs within the community itself. But what's the elephant in the room is there are a lot of Hispanics who have come to America who pretty much do not want other Hispanics coming to America because they feel like it might take away from what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So their parents could have came here illegally and they could have benefited from that, but they don't necessarily want you coming here illegal.
Mm-hmm. Right. And yep, that ties in actually perfectly to the next thing I was going to, are you reading my mind? What's going on? But the next thing I was going to say, now the immigration issue that we've had, okay, just to expand a little bit. Now we have a really, really bad problem here in America, in my humble, okay, opinion. You know, I don't like what's been happening to the Black community from all different angles. For example, I brought up the issue with Black Lives Matter, and then you check my Twitter page, they got some statue with a rainbow glowing with a statue with some guy riding a horse and all that, you know, the LGBTQ or whatever, which is obviously, you know, no hate, no shade on them or whatever. But the thing is, in the Black community, I believe, okay, even if it's just me by myself, I believe the Black community has every right to have a family without everybody trying to rip the throats out. I believe the Black community has every right, you know, man, woman, child, husband, wife, son, daughter. You see what I'm saying? And it's not a personal dig to take away power or privilege against the LGBTQ community. Number one. Number two, I believe that the Black community has every right to the capitalism system, just like everybody else. When you have these government policies, and then you got these Planned Parenthood and all these mass abortions, 1,000 Black aborted babies a day. How does a demographic have a chance to achieve wealth in their community? You see, the more people you have, the more potential, right, that you'll have for people to go out, produce, or work a job or start a business, and then to gather this wealth. So we have a family chain, what do you call it? A family chain migration system that used to exist for decades before Trump changed it around to being merit-based. Are you worth coming here into America? What can you bring to the table, as opposed to, oh, look at you, you done brought your mama, now you can bring your uncle and you can bring your cousin, and then you can bring your daddy, and then you can bring your grandma, because it's family-based in one area in immigration, but then the Black community doesn't have a right to have a family. They should have a right to have a family and to have home ownership and have access and the potential, you know, to acquire all this capital.
It's a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
The people inside the community who don't want to have a family are people who benefit from not having a family. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these single mothers have benefited from being single mothers.
Right, right.
Now, in the long term, like I was on Faith's panel, I don't know, last week or something like that. And I basically posed a question, and I hate to do this to the women, but the women say they're the most educated, right? The women say, you know, they're killing it, right? And they've been saying they've been educated for a while. But let's X out the fact that they still don't make as much as the black men in the time.
Okay.
The women don't own anything. With all of these, with all of these benefits, think about all of the mothers who, let's even take out welfare.
Okay.
Let's think of all the mothers who got child support and the taxes every year, and they still don't own a home.
Right, right, right.
You know, let's look at all the you know, the women who have multiple kids by multiple men and still don't own anything. And then you would come to like, so why, you know, is in my mind I call them not BLM but BLGQ LGTQM. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right, right. Not the concept of Black Lives Matter, but that. Right, got you.
Right. So why would they benefit off of this? Because the black community doesn't have a family structure that involves a father.
Yep,
Their community doesn't have a family structure that involves a father.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and
So,
see, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. You got it.
Okay, so yeah, man. I mean, I gotta hand it to you again. You know, you just might be onto something because, you know, this is me looking back a little bit on history. You know, we saw how Martin Luther King Jr. he tried, and a lot of people don't speak on his speech, but yeah, there were things he was trying to address after his, you know, I Have a Dream. And what happened to him. We see what happened to Malcolm X. We see what happened to Michael Jackson, et cetera, et cetera. So with all that being said, you know, I understand where you're coming from because it appears to me, looking back in history, the combination of Planned Parenthood, you know, the whole, I don't know what you call it, civil rights, the attempt, addressing civil rights issues back in the 60s. But you know, yeah, you know, what was it? LBJ, kick out the black fathers. I have these N-words voting for Democrats 200 years. Well, I mean, guess what? I'm a Christian, I'm a proud Christian, you know, but I can take my faith out of it, my principles out of it. Let's eliminate God. Okay. Let's go back to the caveman days. Who was out there hunting? Who was out there getting them resources? It was the man of the family. Because, you know, science would agree with such a thing. Who's more likely to go out here and acquire the resources and to acquire the food, find these lions, tigers, and bears, et cetera, et cetera? You know, it's just physics. It's just science. So when everybody wants to come, you know, talking about, well, the science, I believe the science, this, that, and the third. Look, I took my faith out of it. You know what I'm saying? So when you go, you break up the nuclear family unit, and we see how the black community on a broad spectrum, or on the grand scheme, I mean to say, became a matriarch. It became a matriarch. It's one of the only demographics everywhere in which it became a matriarch. So I'm agreeing with you, you know, that you know, the black family matters as long as you get rid of, you know, the husband, the father. And then you have these government incentives, kind of like with the coronavirus. Count this coronavirus as a coronavirus death, and then you will get a monetary incentive. I spoke with a guy, his father, I can't say exactly, but I guess a board member of Methodist Hospital. So with that being acknowledged, you know, there are monetary incentives, a framework that has been put in place that move the needle, negatively speaking, in the black community. So the science, the data, or whatever you want to call it, is already there. When you have a two-parent household, you have a mother and a father, the children are better off. They get more money, you know, they have a much higher chance of house ownership. So yeah, with the combination of the matriarch, you kick out the black fathers, 50, 60 years pass by, you observed black women, generally speaking, they ain't owning a whole bunch of land. They ain't owning all these houses up out here. Raw assets, raw assets. You see what I'm saying? Um, and you know, it's a bad look. You know, I remember seeing some tweet, and I think I saw it off your YouTube video, something about what's her name, Jamil Hill. She tweeted out something about, oh, you know, black men, you know, are not trying to destroy the patriarchy. They're trying to get access to it. I mean, dang, why does that upset you so much? Because you know, see, let's just say it. You know what it been. You know what it is. You see what I'm saying? Going back with these government policies and all that, and you want to keep that matriarch and that power. And it's not that black men are trying to just go out here and bash all black women, destroy them. They're just saying, look, I want to have a shot. I want to assume my rightful role as a husband, as a father, or the head of the household, as a family unit. And I don't see anything wrong with it. You see what I'm saying? Do you?
It's not going to work, though. That's like, we've got a generation, maybe a generation and a half of people that's just not going to work for them. When you brought up Jamel Hill, she had put out another tweet basically saying LBJ did the most for black people. And somebody was like, you gonna publicly say that you don't even know the context you're in? Like, she, and for me, I'm like, you're a journalist. You should know the framework of how and why LBJ did what he did. And it wasn't because LBJ liked black people whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Or thought to be fair whatsoever. But on top of that, because I talked about that and something else this morning, where is it Alicia Garza? The one that was on the talking to Ice Cube on the Roland Martin show. She has an issue with patriarchy. Come to find out, she wrote a book. And basically the excerpt from the book says, for her, it started when she was 8 or 9 years old, and her dad would tell her mom to get him some coffee in the morning. Or sometimes tell her to get him some coffee in the morning because he loved coffee.
Yeah.
And same thing with Jamel Hill. Her dad was a drug addict. But I find it interesting because there are a lot of mothers who are drug addicts.
Nobody talks about it ever, 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 though.
And nobody, just says, because my mother was a drug addict, I don't like women. Mm-hmm. Or I think being around women is just, they don't talk about it in a context. And nobody would ever say, and you hear nobody say, man, my mom liked, coffee or Pop-Tarts, and she made me get her some coffee in the morning. And because of that, I just, the gynocracy. It sounds stupid.
Yeah, very much so. But since it's a man, now it just seems completely plausible.
And not to mention, there are a lot of people from a certain generation, a little bit older than me, who are female, who could tell you that their family told them don't depend on a man, but didn't tell you that it was probably their dad that paid for their education. They didn't tell you that part.
Right.
They didn't tell you that their dad probably used their connections to get you a job. They didn't tell you that their dad probably, you inherited their dad's retirement or a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't tell you that part. So now you got people growing up with half of the story, and now they're not thinking about, man, I don't, these men are no good. And now you basically financially put yourself in a bind because the generation of women who got their education paid for and they got a leg up by men who told you don't depend on men, they weren't gonna put no money in your pocket. So these moms can't afford to send their daughters to college. You got to get loans.
Right.
And now you want to meet men that can help you pay off your loans, even though you don't like men.
Oh yeah. Well, definitely. Yeah, and yeah, that makes sense, and see, that's one of the dangers, in my opinion, with the Black community, and I've spoken to my family in particular about it, on my dad's side, gotta stop playing into these negative stereotypes. You gotta stop. We know that they're everywhere. We know that the mainstream media, fake news, whatever you want to call it, they blare it out on the loudspeaker. But you gotta stop playing into these negative stereotypes. You ain't gotta be a thought out here. You ain't gotta be a thug out here. You be a thought out here, you finna get ran through by everybody. You finna get ran through by everybody, and everybody gonna know. You got the bag. That's good for you. Everybody know what it is, which number one. Number two, thug culture, I don't really like it all that much, but see, understanding what's going on during the decades, FBI, CIA, and all that, I can understand how one could get figuratively backed into a corner, so to speak. I could be fair enough to say that.
Do you watch Fargo?
No.
Okay. Fargo is actually a dope series, real dope, but it's on Hulu, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they have 4 different seasons. So, but they're completely different. But they all, some type of crime on the come up type thing. But they're basically it's a true story, but they just change the names and have actors.
Okay.
This season of Fargo, I think they're like in the 5th or 6th episode. Chris Rock, so it's a black gangsters and Italian gangsters, right?
Okay.
But there was a very interesting scene in the last episode. And the guy said, the Italian gangster says, he goes to the black guys in jail and he's like, listen, in America, we like the crime movie. We like the gangster movie. Why? Because in America, we like the person who takes it from another person. You can root on a person who just takes it. And he says, well, but that's for everybody else but y'all.
No, it's because the spotlight's not shining on everybody else, but certain group.
Right. But no. The way he was saying it, because he was Italian, okay. And it was based in the 50s when Italians were still getting the business by white America. When they were white under pretenses, but they were still getting treated like it was on the side. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
White, Italians, and Irish. So what he tells the guys is like, except y'all. See, we commit crime, and everybody else in this country commits crime, and people look at a group of people committing crime to come up. They just look at y'all as crime. And I kind of cracked up because basically what it looks like is what it is. It's that we live in a country where I'm the only person that can be stereotyped. You can actually, another person who's not like us can be the actual stereotype, but they'll never be looked at.
Not like that. No, so do you believe this is achieved because of the the general powers that be, mainstream media narrative is what's making it so difficult?
No, to me it's deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
To me it's you ever play a sport and you wind up hating your opponent because you know that that y'all side is cheating, but they still beating you?
No,
You
I
get what
mean,
I'm saying?
I haven't, but no, yeah, I mean, yeah, I can understand the mentality of it completely because
Yeah,
I lived it, and I was the one who generally tried to play by the rules, and the other side
like
would
I
cheat
tell you
and
what,
outnumber, and somehow I would still come out on top. So I know where you're
what,
coming from.
I'm gonna make a different reference. You are you a gamer?
Yeah.
Okay, say, and I ain't played video games in I don't know how long. You know, you play like Madden because I used to play Madden a lot, right?
Hmm.
When you get that friend who decides to pick the all greats team, you know, greatest line, greatest running back, greatest. He just get his team that he made is everything. You know, everybody's a 99,
Right, right.
and then you playing them, and you still beat them,
Yeah.
and he's gonna lose his mind
Yeah.
because he's gonna, you know, I got this person and that person and this. And how you doing this? That's how I look at this country.
Hmm.
So people are losing their mind because at the end of the day, you hate a person because you're supposed to beat them because you got all the cards in your favor. But the problem with that is, if you got all the cards in your favor, you become a person of little to no skill.
Yeah. Yeah. I would even go a step further. I would say that you just proved to the whole world you're a laughing stock. You're incompetent. You don't
And
deserve that position or that powerful role, whatever you're in. You're just incompetent.
I was years ago, me and O'Shea was doing the brother pill, right?
Right.
And I asked him the question. Um, I says, if you went, okay, if an African country owed the U.S. $20 trillion, you would say what? Like they stupid, they incompetent. Like, but the funny thing about the U.S. is the U.S. can owe another nation $20 trillion, and people are like, oh, yeah, the economy's booming. We're going in a positive direction. I'm like, this is why this country is crazy
Mm-hmm.
because you know people say there's good debt and bad debt. There's no such thing as a good debt. You never heard of a bank owing another bank talking about it's a good debt because the bank want to get paid off for your debt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you never heard a lender. A lender says it's good debt because you got to pay them. If you borrow, you shouldn't say it's a good debt
Mm-hmm.
because you know you got to pay it. And the reason I'm saying that is to say this: because of the stereotypes in America, in the media, their idea of what's right and what's wrong is upside down so much
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, they can't write their own ship because they can't look at themselves. Like we
Right.
talk about in a manosphere, the men talk about women having no accountability. This country has no accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So you screwed because how is everything gonna be my fault?
Yeah. Yeah. And that does make a certain level of sense to me. Um, Yeah, looking back on it, look, I believe that there is a such thing as, racism is just a form of hatred. White supremacy, is obviously in that category of racism. So I'm not one of them crazy people who's gonna say there's no such thing as racism. It's never existed. There's no injustices with different demographics because it's really asinine and ass backwards because that's what leads you to where you stumble upon I don't know right from wrong. I don't have any discernment. You see what I'm saying? Because if you want to talk about Martin Luther King Jr., you judge them by their character. Okay, there are people in the actual cabinet or the administration of the Trump administration that have made the official statements. We see that there are certain people, demographics, that are disproportionately affected. And we are going to research and investigate why this certain people or whatever are disproportionately always affected. So they can at least acknowledge a certain pattern that there's something happening as opposed to all these other people. There's no such thing. Racism is never real, never even happened.
Because I made a video, I mean, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. Racism and feminism is a business model.
Right.
That's what it is to me in America. It's a business model.
Okay.
Because why would racism exist? Because you profit off of it. Why feminism followed the same business model as racism. Pick a group, say that group is negative. Every time that group does something, I need to get paid off of them, period. You know,
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So in this country, you know, you can't have this much, put it like, if I own property, right?
Okay.
The goal is to mathematically put me in a situation where I'm gonna have to give it up someday. So all the money I put into it, gone. So I could own land, home, whatever, and say it costs $200,000. So a bank to pay, unless I got the cash, I'm gonna pay somewhere between $250,000 to $600,000 borrowing. In that process, if I mess up, it's gonna get taken just like that. And so somebody else could buy it and they're gonna raise the price on it. But if I actually pay for it, then you gotta make sure I pay the taxes on it, right?
Right.
And if I taxes 1 or 2 years, I think 2 or 3 years, those taxes, now I could lose a property that I bought for 200 that might be worth 300 or 400 because I didn't pay, say, $15,000 in taxes.
I'm glad you brought that up because, see, that seems to be a problem right here in Houston. I've heard a number of people complaining.
Yeah.
I believe the bill is called HR 40. You can research, I'm going to say it one more time, HR 40 for anybody who checks out this live stream later on. And with HR 40, yeah, you know, jacking up those property taxes, you know, the way that they are is pissed off a huge number of homeowners, my dad included. Okay, it's already hard enough, you know, and then you got these coronavirus extended draconian shutdowns, and now you want to jack these property taxes up. Look, man, that takes away from the collective family unit and home ownership, you know, demographic in America.
Wait, here's gonna be the best part about it.
Oh, hold on, I'm gonna be right here. Just keep talking. I'm listening.
Okay. One of the best parts about it is when you look at this pandemic, the property tax should go down because of foreclosures, business closures, apartments not being able to be filled. So if the taxes don't go down, that means they're never meant to go down. Because this is the prime season that the taxes should go down. You know, because people can't, you know, everything. So the businesses are closing because what? They can't afford to pay the rent in commercial real estate. So, you know, like I was telling a friend of mine, you know, I see far more apartment complexes popping up than I do subdivisions. And on top of that, you know, people don't know this, but apartments cost more than mortgages now. You know, so it's meant for you not to be able to afford a home. It's set up that way. But when the taxes don't go down now, like, you know how they had the stadiums?
Yeah, I remember.
You know,
like, go ahead.
For the high school teams. So if you can't go to the stadium because of COVID, how the hell the tax gonna go up next year?
Yep. That makes sense, but this kind of brings me back to where I was at before. This is why I believe it's very important. The CDC has put out the official statistics as well. 99% survival rate with the coronavirus. These are official statistics. And I don't understand because the H1N1 flu, going back to the Barack Obama presidency, they actually shut down testing, all documented. They shut it down. Whereas now we have this dramatic public and private partnership. The mobilization, I think, act is what it's called as well, or something like that. And we have these therapeutics that have rolled out. A lot of these masks, these ventilators have been done. So it is possible for people to work together to solve this problem. But raising property taxes is not a good idea to do it with these extended draconian shutdowns, especially if Wuhan, China, the source of the virus, can open back up. These politicians have to be held accountable, and you have to call them out. I don't think you kidnap them like what happened in Michigan or whatever with that Gretchen Whitmer, that white lady. No, but you gotta hold them accountable because there are people suffering. Now, the government doesn't create anything. Okay, you're gonna have it right here in the the marketplace. Okay, we are the creators. The business owners are the creators. The workers, the people with jobs are the creators and the producers. The government doesn't create. It just takes. So, the false dichotomy between socialism and capitalism, you got a capitalism part. The socialism is, the government itself, because when it's all said and done, the government, they derive the resources and the monetary funding for their programs and such from the taxpayers. You got to pay the taxes into it. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be realistic. Instead of using talking points from whatever party, oh, I'm a liberal, oh, I'm a conservative. Let's just be realistic instead, okay? This is why I believe in immigration is okay, but it has to be legal immigration. You pay into the tax system, you pay into the government, now you're being fiscally responsible, the debt's going down, or it's not rising as fast. And I believe in one of the best solutions for the China virus that we have is to open the economy back up. The data's already out there, and once they're producing and they're doing that, guess what? I get my paycheck, they gonna take them taxes out, period. You see what I'm saying?
It's a few things that kill me about this scenario. America has two major problems with this pandemic. The other nations only have one. Arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can't just follow rules because they feel like I'm so free, I can't follow a rule. So the arrogance creates the long layover of not opening up cities. Number two, which is just as important, obesity. Mm-hmm. A lot of these other countries opened up because they don't have the obesity rates of America. Mm-hmm. So they're not as they don't get as sick because they're closer to being healthy than this nation. And by being in this city, you go out to any place and count 10 people, 6 or 7 of them gonna be fat.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's where we have to have personal responsibility.
So that's one issue that just, it's not, you can't get away from. Now the other, I could be a conspiracy theorist, but one of the things that catches me about this whole thing is, 51 to 55% of all Caucasian in America are 55 and up. So they're gonna die, because of age alone, right?
Right.
The lifespan that's the average age. You get what I'm saying? But
Okay.
but they have over 51 to 55% of the population is basically looked at as elderly. You're trying to save those people to save your numbers, you know, which is understandable, but this is a whole nother problem that America has. Because if you look at our government, judicial, executive, God dog it, congressional, the three houses or whatever.
The legislative, the judicial, and the executive. Yeah.
Well, Congress thing, legislative. The vast majority of those people are what? Probably over 60.
Mm-hmm.
So we got two issues that we don't want to address. These people are too old to be in power because society doesn't operate like it used to because of technology.
Okay.
These people know nothing about technology, engineering, and obviously they don't know anything about mathematics because we wouldn't be such debt if they knew math.
Mm-hmm.
So now, and you could bring science into it also. Because of this virus, it's like the possibility of what could happen. Well, you're right. Like, it's about to be flu season. So they're expecting it's going to get worse. They wouldn't have signed that little Heroes Act if they didn't think it was going to get worse. Now, the irony about America is this. As far as Western countries, America has done the least for its citizens in all Western countries during this pandemic. You look at all these other countries, they're doing a whole lot more financially for their citizens than America is.
Mm-hmm.
The unemployed in America, will get like $600 a week, and then that ran out. The people who are employed got what, $1,200? On top of that, it was the PPP. The people who had businesses, they were getting too much money. Too much money.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're trying to act like their overhead is, you covered their overhead for multiple years, not just 1 year. So and then you got people laying off people and furloughing people. If you're getting 7 figures, and some of these businesses have gotten 7 figures, and you laying off people, don't act like you're paying these people $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of these things, the vast majority of America is working in retail and food.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. We're coming up on about an hour and a half. So, yeah, we're going to have to wrap this up real soon. But yeah, man, I really appreciate this thought-provoking conversation, because these things got to take place in order for us to properly assess the problems that may exist, in our society. Because if you can't even identify the problem, you'll never solve it. You'll always just beat around the bush, always. So I'm glad you brought that up. The stimulus checks, I think they passed maybe a few packages, 2 or 3 packages so far. The way that the funds were divvied up, yeah, it could have been a lot better because it seems like the ones who benefited the most was, really big business, as opposed to the small businesses, family businesses that have been crushed, just destroyed during this pandemic and all the shutdowns. But at the same time, I do believe in being fiscally responsible. So that's part of the reason why I have this perspective of reopen the economy. I believe that adults are not babies, are not children. They know how to put on a mask. They know how to social distance. And I believe that it's important, yes, for them to have the choice. Not just eliminate the choice altogether. If you want to stay home, stay home. If you don't want to go to work, don't go to work. But don't eliminate the freedom altogether to where people can't say, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance. I got to do something for my family. I got to feed my kids. I'm not going to depend on the government, because see, that's how you usher in socialism and communism and stuff like that. 100% complete dependency on the government. You know, don't eliminate the freedom in and of itself for people to choose whether or not they want to work to feed their families or build up their careers or build up their businesses. So you're right about that. But like I said, just to state one last time, I don't think that having endless recovery packages from the government is going to solve anything. It's not, because when it's all said and done, it's going to pile up the debt. That's really what it's going to do. The government cannot create anything. They have to, derive their funds and their resources from their people. You see what I'm saying? Even down to the prison system or whatever. Well, these are for profit, or maybe it's a mix of government and for profit or whatever. Well, guess what? One thing people bring up with Kamala Harris, you keep people past their release date, and you withheld evidence, you're as a prosecutor. And well, guess what? You got that free labor. So even if you say, okay, well, we're not even going to talk about money or whatever, guess what? You still got the labor. The labor is just another fancy word of saying, guess what? They're producing. So production, as I've seen on one of your last YouTube videos, is extremely important. I don't care if you're digging a ditch, replacing the shingles on a house, running the shop yourself, a small bank, whatever. I think it would be beneficial for the Black community to come together, start up their own small banks, their small businesses, invest in one another. I saw on Dr. Boyce Watkins, one of his older videos like a year ago, he spoke with a billionaire from Bank of America. And, the Italians used Bank of America.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different concepts that, for example, just as an example, everybody could do it, but the Black community.
Wait. When you say the Italians use Bank of America, are you talking about the illegal part of the Italians or the legal part of the Italians?
It could probably be both of them, but I'm going off of Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm thinking it's probably the illegal ones. But the idea,
there's a reason I'm asking that.
Yeah, the understanding of it is that it didn't say the Italian Bank of America.
Mm-hmm.
It just said Bank of America. And then obviously it exploded to where he had a billionaire, I think, CEO in which he could speak to and learn how to manifest such prosperity and wealth.
Right. The Bank of America had something to do with the Bank of Italy, didn't it?
Not entirely sure.
It's one of those banks. It's like Bank of France, Bank of Italy. One of those banks is basically the predecessor to Bank of America.
That's something I'll definitely make sure to look into and to check out. But I think it's a very genius move. The Black community can learn this maybe. If you start a bank, for example, you don't have to say it's the Black Bank of such and such, whatever. You could just say Community Banking and Lending Center, and then it just so happened to be Black owned. And then you rise to the heights and greatness of Bank of America and their giant skyscrapers and corporate buildings without having to advertise, it's Black, just like the Italians didn't advertise, this is Italian business, Italian family owned.
Right.
So
that's, Fred Hampton used to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Hampton used to talk about that, and the irony of he died in his early 20s, and he was talking about, because he was like, because our version, we had banks. You know what? If you get a chance, watch Fargo. it's something in there that has to do with banking.
Okay.
That, like I said, is based on a true story. And I'm gonna just say allegedly, if that's based on a true story, for real like that, you're gonna shake your head.
Okay. Yeah,
Because
I'll definitely take a look at Fargo.
spoiler alert, then it's basically inferring, referencing that credit cards were actually a black idea.
Okay. That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
So, because thinking of banking, it's thinking of Fred Hampton with that. He was talking about the community banks, you know,
Okay.
and people who don't realize community banks normally give you better rates than big banks.
Absolutely, that's true.
Credit unions. I'm sorry,
Credit
credit unions.
unions, yeah.
And they have a lot of, we have about 3 or 4 black banks in Houston, you know, and I know, because I know there's one, I know there's one in New Orleans, and that same one is in Chicago, and I know there are a few in Georgia, but we don't really go to those banks like that, you know, and I think the problem is probably because at the end of the day, the white man's green is always greener.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that it's a negative perception because green is green. What the white green is not better than the black green. Green is green. Other Americans can see it as clear as day. We should be able to see it the same exact way. But to add on, yeah, you're right. We should invest in your own community. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be ashamed of it. You know what I'm saying? How else are you going to, you see other demographics do it. So what's wrong with you doing it? Just because other people might shame you or whatever, don't mean it's wrong. They're probably trying to shame you because they don't want your success as a demographic. But yeah, you're spot on, man. You're
The
spot
one
on.
thing that communities do that we don't, they don't let their crime ruin the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, the biggest difference. They have, of course our community is over policed, but they have far more drug trafficking than we do.
Mm-hmm.
They just have far less violence.
Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, we're just gonna tie it all together, and I'm back. I'm over my time, but very productive, very productive. Um, this, wrapping it all up, in my opinion, we got to curve back this illegal immigration. Houston Chronicle, you wrong for promoting that during the pandemic. You killed grandma. All right, yeah, I'm gonna say it. Um, stick with legal immigration, not make it family based, make it merit based. Pay into the system, pay into the government. Let's trim back the bureaucracy, trim back the big government so that we can um, pay off these debts or slow the rate of growth of the national debt. Let's see, what else do I have? Perfectly fine for the Black community to come up just like any other community. Black community has to look in the mirror and say, look, we see these Hispanics, they got their families. Maybe there ain't nothing wrong with me having my own family. Maybe I don't always got to run the child support. Maybe it's, Black women in particular. Maybe it's okay to support, your husband or the father of your child. Maybe it's okay to do it. We tried the matriarch or whatever you want to call it for the last 50, 60 years. It didn't work. So if you want to keep on doing it, then you're insane. You are. Um, and it's okay, to look into different cultures, different demographics, and see what are they practicing that succeeds so well. I'll just say Hispanic community, you know what I'm saying? The man's gonna go out to work, gonna work his butt off. The woman, you know, his lady ain't gonna go to war against him. She ain't finna run up on him talking about you ain't shit, you ain't shit, you ain't shit, you ain't shit. Even when he's starting his business, he might have just, for example, a landscaper. He just might have what do you call it, a mower, not even have any employees. She ain't running around, you ain't shit, you ain't shit, you ain't shit, you ain't finna make it, you ain't finna hire these people on, you ain't, you know, you gotta stop. You gotta back off of that. Okay? You gotta stop and back up off of that. Give the dude a chance to start, and don't wait for the finished product after 10, 20, 30 years have been spent. And then now he a multimillionaire. Now he got multiple companies, and then run around and talk about, oh, okay, you know, now I mess with you. Um, uh, with white people as a demographic, invest. It's okay to invest. That pack of cigarettes that you might buy, you know, I smoke cigarettes, or that cup of coffee you might buy at Starbucks, you know, take that money and invest it into a stock market, or if you're risky or whatever, penny stocks. If you want a um, safer portfolio, you can invest in options trading, you know, because there is a level of economic education that needs to take place. That's it needs to happen like 10 years ago. So yeah, that's pretty much it, you know, but we got to chip down on the debt or not make it rise so much. America first doesn't mean America alone. This is why we see what's going on in the Middle East, for example. Um, in terms of China, yeah, we have to acknowledge the intellectual property theft, specifically with technology and big tech. Like Twitter, they have some people that are from the CCP, and they're on the board, and they're, you know, monitoring on big tech. You know, so we got to acknowledge these things. And if people don't like the Twitter or the Facebook or whatever, build your own. Build your own, you know, software, your own app. You know, apps are not really that difficult to create. Um, but it's this, you know, all this interconnected approach has to take place, and we'll see the entire country rise up as a whole, and we can do it equally. We don't have to set it up to where, like Animal Farm, you know, well, this animal, you know, these animals are more equal than these other animals. Everybody can be truly equal, equal opportunity, not equal results, or whatever you call it. I can't remember. Um, and just
No,
rise up. So, you know, care about the family unit, be fiscally responsible, be willing to take risk and invest and diversify your portfolios. Be willing to network out with other people, because you can't do it all by yourself. The law of the jungle is numbers. You know, 1,000 is obviously going to beat one person by themselves. And deal with the reality that we are living in before it's too late in America. Okay. And for the ADOS community, look, I'm right there with you. I'm ADOS. Okay. You can make money too, not be at each other's throats like that. And if you want to, invest in Africa, get you some land, get you a house or whatever. I've spoken to immigrants. That's what they do. So this is what I'm talking about. We can pull certain concepts from different demographics. Immigrants, legally too. They might come from, I don't know, Guatemala. They take the money, they work their asses off. Sometimes they live with their parents. Um, and they'll take that money and they'll invest it right back in their communities, back in their country. And guess what? Now they got a ranch. Now they got a farm. Now they got a mansion. You could do that, right? And you can invest in Africa. So you don't have China buying all the land and the resources in Africa. You're actually the new man in the middle or woman in the middle that's saying, no, 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 no. Back up, China. You know what I'm saying? I ain't finna just let you do that to my people. You know what I'm saying? And invest. But yeah, man, this is really great. And I really appreciate this interview. It was a long time coming, LAR. Is there any final words you want to say?
No, you got it, fam. You can call it a wrap, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. So yeah, everybody, I will make sure to subscribe to LAR Movement. He's been doing this for a real long time, and I respect the seniority and all the years of work that he's put into it. You know, that's why I thought it was really important to interview him because this guy right here, you know what he's talking about. So, but that's it for today, y'all. Thank you very much for viewing this with us, and you have yourself a great day. God bless America.
Peace.
All right.